Welcome back, everybody, to another deep dive.
Always exciting.
Yeah, so today we're going to be diving into the art of persuasion,
Okay.
and specifically how it works in like a leadership context,
Yeah.
And, we always have such interesting sources for these deep dives. And you sent me this really fascinating YouTube video by this guy named Xavier Pirla.
Oh, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, and he's like a master trainer and NLP and coaching all this stuff. But here's the thing, it's all in Spanish.
The language barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
But I know you speak Spanish, so I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this will be perfect for us to break down.
Had to put my skills to the test. Yeah.
But don't worry, for all of our listeners, we've got you covered. We translated all the key points.
Of course.
And I think we're going to uncover some really powerful strategies from this video.
Definitely.
And I think a good place to start would be with this captivating story about how an FBI agent persuaded Saddam Hussein to reveal sensitive information.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's going to be interesting.
And he did it without like directly asking him about it.
Yeah. Oh, so like a roundabout way.
Yeah, really interesting. So picture this December 2003, Saddam Hussein is captured,
High stakes.
right? The U.S. has this very limited window to try and get some, critical intelligence from them.
Yeah.
But the problem is Hussein has absolutely nothing to gain or lose by talking to them.
That's a tough spot to be in.
So how do you even begin to persuade someone in that position?
Yeah, how do you even approach that?
Right, so they bring in this guy, George Pirro. He's an FBI agent, and he's fluent in Arabic.
Okay.
And he's the one tasked with this very difficult interrogation. But here's the thing. Pirro takes this totally unconventional approach,
Interesting.
right? So instead of like the classic, grilling him with all these direct questions about, weapons of mass destruction or political matters,
Right.
he decides to focus on building rapport with Hussein.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so they're having these daily conversations about like poetry and life and their fears.
Sounds like a strange pairing.
Right. It's almost like, a buddy cop movie, but with incredibly high stakes.
Yeah. But I mean, it makes you wonder, like, what was the strategy behind that approach?
Exactly. So what was Pirro thinking?
Yeah.
Well, he understood that the only way to really get through to Hussein was to create a space where Hussein felt like he was actually being seen and heard.
Okay.
Like, think back to that concept of the zone of comfort control.
Mm-hmm.
To really persuade someone, you have to make them feel like they have some control, some ability to achieve their goals within that situation.
They had to feel empowered.
Exactly. And like classic interrogation tactics would have just made Hussein feel totally threatened and less likely to open up.
Yeah, it would have shut him down completely.
Right. So instead, Pirro kind of sidesteps all of that.
I see.
And by engaging in these like totally unrelated conversations, he's subtly shifting Hussein's zone of comfort control.
Interesting. So it's like he's disarming him without Hussein even realizing it.
Exactly. He's making him more receptive to influence without, forcing it.
Pretty clever.
So the big question is, did it work?
Right. Did this strategy actually pay off?
Well, on the last day, during their like farewell,
Oh, wow.
something pretty remarkable happened.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
Hussein, speaking from this place of like real vulnerability, actually confesses the truth about the WMDs.
He just comes out and says it?
Yeah, he admits that they were mainly just a tactic to scare Iran.
Really?
And that there was actually no connection with Osama bin Laden.
Wow. So it wasn't like any kind of intense pressure or trickery that led to this.
Yeah.
It was just that genuine connection built over time.
Right. Months and months of conversations.
That's amazing.
And that's the power of like real trust and understanding and persuasion.
You're absolutely right.
It's more effective than any kind of forceful method.
Yeah, it's like that saying, you can catch more flies with honey than with vinegar.
Right. And so I think this story perfectly illustrates like the core of what Perla's talking about in this video.
Yeah, it lays the groundwork for everything else.
And he goes on to outline some key concepts that help us understand this approach even better.
So let's break them down.
Yeah, let's dive in. I'm ready to learn.
All right, let's do it. Okay, so we've got that foundation of trust, right, that Pirro built with Saddam Hussein.
Right.
Now let's think about rapport. How do we actually create that?
Okay.
As leaders, we're always having to kind of guide our teams through these transitions and changes,
Yeah, I think so.
Things that might feel a little uncomfortable for them.
Totally.
Like, what if you're implementing a whole new software system?
Yeah, or restructuring a department or something.
Right, exactly. So how can we use this idea of rapport to make those transitions smoother?
It seems like that active listening piece is really important, right? Like actually hearing your team's concerns
Absolutely.
and acknowledging their perspective.
Yeah, showing them that you get it.
Because that kind of empathy, I feel like, really builds trust and reduces that resistance to change.
You're totally right. It's not about just dropping a bombshell announcement and saying, deal with it.
Right. It's more about collaborating with them.
Exactly.
So instead of like, this is how we're going to do it, it's more like, hey, how can we work together to make this transition successful for everyone?
Right. Give them ownership over the change.
Yeah, and that ties back to that zone of comfort control idea.
Exactly. When people feel like they're part of the solution,
They're on board.
they're much more likely to be receptive to new ideas.
Right. It's about empowering them, not dictating.
Exactly.
So I'm curious about this idea of generosity.
Okay, yeah.
How does that play into persuasion,
It's a good question.
especially in a leadership context?
Right.
Because it's not just about buying everyone donuts, right?
Haha, no, definitely not, although that's always a good thing.
Sure.
But think about it this way. Generosity in persuasion, it's about approaching the whole thing with this genuine desire to help,
Okay.
to actually empower and benefit the other person.
So how does a leader do that?
Well, think about when a leader's really transparent with information,
Okay.
they delegate responsibility freely, they show trust in their team.
What happens?
What kind of response do they get?
You create this sense of loyalty, right? People want to reciprocate.
Exactly.
Like you show faith in your team, they're going to rise to the occasion.
It's this powerful cycle of positive reinforcement.
I like that.
But, of course, we can't talk about persuasion without addressing this big thing.
What's that?
Fear.
Oh, yeah,
Fear is huge, especially for leaders.
totally. Because you feel this pressure to always appear confident and decisive,
Right. You have to have all the answers.
even when you're not sure or you're having doubts.
Yeah. How do we deal with that?
Right. How do you navigate that fear without letting it derail your leadership?
It might sound counterintuitive, but sometimes the best way to deal with those fears is to actually acknowledge them
Really?
instead of trying to suppress them.
So you're saying a little vulnerability can be a good thing
It can actually enhance your credibility and make you more persuasive.
because it makes you relatable.
Exactly.
It humanizes you.
Right. When you admit that you don't have all the answers,
People can connect with that.
you're showing your team that you're all in this together.
It's like that saying, people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
It's about connecting on a human level, not projecting this image of perfection.
So authenticity is key.
Absolutely. And that leads us to the final concept, credibility.
Okay, break it down. What makes a leader credible?
Is it years of experience?
A fancy title?
Yeah. All that stuff plays a role, but real credibility goes deeper.
So what is it then?
It's about congruence,
Congruence.
meaning there's alignment between your words, actions, and emotions.
You walk the walk
You got it.
and talk the talk.
It's about genuinely living your values, not just talking about them.
And focusing on solutions, not just dwelling on problems.
Yes. Credible leaders, they acknowledge the challenges,
But they also inspire their team to find solutions.
to think outside the box.
So credibility is like a mix of character competence and a genuine desire to make a positive impact.
Exactly. It's all connected.
I'm seeing the bigger picture now.
It's about creating this culture of trust and collaboration
Yeah.
where people feel empowered to do their best.
So it sounds like Perla's view of leadership is about more than just those old school management techniques.
Yeah, it's about understanding human connection and motivation.
Deeper stuff.
He actually defines a leader as someone who builds strong relationships.
With everyone.
Yeah, with their collaborators,
Yeah.
bosses, suppliers, even their clients.
Interesting.
It's about serving others and building a collaborative, trusting environment.
It's not about being the boss.
Right. It's about empowering everyone to work together.
Towards a shared vision.
Exactly. And that ties right back to persuasion.
How so?
When you have that kind of positive environment,
Yeah.
people are naturally more open to your ideas.
Because they feel valued and respected.
You're not forcing anything on them.
Right. It's about creating a space where everyone feels heard and understood.
Exactly.
It's really interesting how Perla emphasizes this whole idea of building strong relationships and having that shared purpose.
Yeah, it's definitely a shift from that old way of doing things, the command and control style leadership.
Right, exactly. And to really drive this point home, Perla brings up this quote from John F. Kennedy. "Let us never negotiate out of fear, but let us never fear to negotiate."
It's a good one.
Powerful stuff.
It is.
So how does that tie back to everything we've been talking about?
Well, I think it reminds us that effective negotiation and persuasion require this balance. of strength and vulnerability.
You have to be assertive, but also open.
Exactly. You got to advocate for your needs, but also be open to compromise.
To find solutions that work for everyone.
Right. It's not about winning or losing.
It's about common ground.
Exactly. Finding that sweet spot where everyone benefits.
And that takes a lot of work, right?
It does.
Like you have to be willing to really listen, to empathize, to think creatively.
To see things from other perspectives.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you really hope our listeners take away from all of this?
I think it's this human connection. It's at the heart of effective persuasion.
It's everything.
When we approach these interactions with empathy, generosity, and a real desire to understand the other person.
Things just flow better.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Persuasion happens organically.
It's not about tricks or manipulation.
No, it's about real relationships.
Built on trust.
And mutual respect.
And like we saw with that story about Saddam Hussein, even in the craziest situations, human connection can really make all the difference.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
So to all our listeners out there, keep exploring, keep connecting, and keep those conversations going.
We'll see you next time.